Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Amusing Panda live stream, your musing and amusing source for all things Warmachine. I think my camera is still lagging out, but regardless, I am pleased to welcome everyone to this week's event wrap up with Rocky Mountain Rumble champion Brandon Owens. How's it going, Brandon?
Hello. Going well, Alex. How are you?
Uh, it's been a day. But other than that, doing good. Oh man. All right. Well, before we get into the all the events that happened over the last 2 weeks and hear your road to the championship in Denver, Colorado, we got a big news item, which is teams are locked for WTC 2026, and the USA has managed to pull together a sixth team.
Five teams.
Six. Oh my God, 5 teams. You can tell what kind of day it's been.
17 teams for the US. You heard it here first. Every American player in the country is going to be there.
We're going up to 64 and it's all American. Yeah, so the WTC global committee has opted to raise the team count to 48. We got all 4 previously discussed American teams included, plus we put in for a 5th. So this 5th team is going to be captained by Sean Hopkins out of Bellingham, Washington. And on the team, we have Blake Hooper, Adam Pricer, Dan Hujnacki, friend of the show, and Phil Marzinek. Did I get Phil's name right there? I know it was on a losing streak of attempting to pronounce Ryan McCoy's name, so now I'm doubting everything.
I don't know if you got it right. I don't know if you got it wrong. But Phil's a sweetheart. Plays out of Buffalo, I believe. All those guys on that team are great dudes. So stoked to see that as a team 5 that we get to send as well.
Yeah. I'm super excited. I'm feeling really good about America's prospects this year. How are you feeling?
I mean, obviously I feel good about it. I think we've got a lot of strong players. And one of the things I feel really good about is when we have 5 teams that get to go, and it's 5 groups of not just very strong players, but very active, social, engaged players. It makes the whole process leading up to the event so much better as well. So I'm really looking forward to being able to spend time in the dojo and practice with all 24 of these other people, plus alternates, and then everybody else in the community as well, obviously. But having a really cohesive team that gets along of 20-something people, and we did it in 2022, right? Like it's really nice. And I think this year we have a group of 25 who work together really well compared to any other year. So I'm feeling good about that. And that obviously makes me feel better about our prospects as a country as well.
I will say I'm probably the because we organize on Discord, right? And my first thought, when I got added to the USA channel was seeing all the messages and alerts I had was, wow, y'all sure can talk a lot, can't you?
Yes, we can. You're a bit of a boomer at heart. I get it, but you do know that you can mute notifications on Discord, right? So that you don't have to see a ping or a pop-up every time somebody says something. Okay, just checking.
Yeah.
I know you just picked up Discord like yesterday, but
that's accurate. I mean, already we're seeing, really amazing dojo discussion in these channels. Like people are really sinking their teeth into one of the most different years we've had in a long time. So I'm excited for that.
Yeah. So after we transitioned to Mark IV, we didn't get a WTC right away. We had to wait a few years for reasons, right? Um, no, that's not right. We did have one
No,
the
we
very
had
next year. I'm sorry.
transfer in 22, WTC in Denmark in 23.
Yeah.
I think Dusk was almost like only half out at that point, but there were still two Dusk players there or something like that.
Yeah. The
And
pandemic
it was
has my
mostly
brain
legacy
broken.
factions.
Yeah. So I was going to say after the Mark IV transition, this is most similar to that time period, right? Because we're, for whatever people, however people feel about Mark 4.5 as a moniker for this big change, whatever. I'm just saying it is a large sea change in the rules and balance of the core game itself. So it's most similar to 2023 when we had the uh, edition change, but then there were so few Mark IV factions out compared to now where we've got all of these armies that have been rebalanced. So I agree. This year feels different to previous years because there's so much new. There's so much new stuff to process and comb through and develop that it really is a more dojo intensive year front loaded from the very beginning to even figure out like what are people playing and like what remote idea of what the meta is going to look like do we even have. So
Yeah.
it's very exciting.
Stephen Williams, 2023 was a great year where Thyron and Cephalix terrorized the meta. I'm inclined to say
Apparently I was mercifully absent.
Yeah, I don't romanticize that aspect of the past. Cephalix still quite strong, but I'm glad Thyron has moved past us. I will say last year was the first year I think that we saw new factions pass legacy factions in number of entries at the WTC, and I'm quite certain that's going to persist this year. But having gone to Rocky Mountain Rumble and then I went to Stumptown Showdown in Portland, Oregon as well. Would you say that's continuing to be the case and that's what people should expect at local metas, barring like your local Menoth diehard?
Yeah, I think for a while now we've had enough factions released to new factions, Mark IV factions, to satisfy the flavor or preference of most players such that they would have found something they switched over to. And obviously they're going to be players out there who just really like some legacy faction, and the players like Ryan who just what's the PG version of this, have a strong affinity for playing legacy jank, who are going to play legacy stuff regardless, right? But for
I mean, you
the
can
majority of the
say
meta,
boner for Dark Host, which is accurate.
that's what I was trying to replace with something a little more tasteful. But thank you for reading my mind. So there are going to be people out there who are going to continue to play legacy.
Predilection for legacy cricks.
Yes, an unnatural affinity. That said, I think most places, at least that I've traveled to and played games in, or where I talk to people, the majority of factions being played are new factions because there's so many new, exciting, hot factions to play that are Mark IV factions. It's hard to see new stuff come out and not have one of them catch your eye and want to pick it up.
Yeah, we have we have methinks the Ryan doth protest too much, but oh man. But so I think we've talked about this periodically that there are still legacy factions that are killer. We've talked about Army of the Western Reaches, Infernals. Do you feel like there's anything that deserves a call out as having a place at the table right now?
Yeah, I think the very nature of Infernals means that unless it gets nerfed a lot, it's always going to have a place at the table because it operates so differently from the way the rest of the game is played. Grimkin used to be that way, but obviously they hit them with a lot of nerfs. And from what little I've heard about the update they're going to do to them when they re-release in the coming weeks, they're probably not going to be the same. They're going to follow more of the normal rules, right? So I don't know if they're going to rise to that level. But in general, I think you are looking to legacy factions once you have a settled meta to see if there is a legacy army or list that does a specific thing very well to counter some predominant meta force. And the reason for that is that most legacy armies don't have the same volume or breadth of options, of powerful options that the Mark IV factions do. And so it's only, in my opinion, it's only when you see an established meta and have something where you say, I want to be able to counter that, that legacy factions really become something that you want to look at.
I would say there's I think that's broadly accurate. And to Stephen Williams' question here, do you count CG, Infernals, or Cephalix as newer legacy? It depends on really whether you've had an update. Cephalix, I think, is waning a bit. One thing I will say about it's not just the presence or absence of options, but difference of design philosophy is I feel also immediately apparent between the new armies and the legacy armies. New armies tend to be much more old Warmachine, where they're super melee focused. And newer armies tend to be combined arms just as a matter of course. Having a good degree of incidental attacks or ability to provide ranged pressure in the early game, just incidentally, that's not present in some of those older armies and may never be present. And I think you see Infernals weather that storm relatively well. People talk about Infernals using like weird tech or synergies and stuff like that. And like, to my mind, Infernals basically plays conventional fair Warmachine very well because they have the option of extra pieces, but they're essentially just leaning into the fundamentals. Versus every other old army does hurt for lack of options or does hurt from design difference. I don't know. What do you think about that? And then what do you think about where CG lands in this mess, having received an update?
So
I know you may not feel that they're most optimal, but I'm curious if you see them as fitting more into the new or old paradigm.
They fit more into the new paradigm to an extent, in that they have a lot of elements that can put out a lot of ranged pressure, either skirmishing ranged pressure, or depending on how you build your list, like Alpha Strike, remove a piece ranged pressure. But also they have a lot of pieces that they may rely on that are mono role. That said, I think most armies do that, and it's a question of which pieces you include in your list. So like you look at an Orgoth list, for instance, most of their stuff is going to be melee focused unless you bring a ranged focused model like a Tyrant with guns or a unit of barragers or whatever. But then you still have what I think is the Mark IV design, core design philosophy of like these support solos that have skirmishing ability, like Reaver Commanders, etc., or like Therian Vanek with their Hex Blasts, right? Where you are doing a support role and still have some skirmishing capability. I feel like a lot of the legacy factions don't have that as much, and Crucible Guard is one of those. You have support pieces and you have combat pieces, and for the most part, they're separate, and they've really widened that gulf by reducing the stats of some of the models, like the Ascendant Mentalist, for instance. I think their accuracy went down like everybody else. So you've got a line of sight ignoring spray that you can do still, but you can't do that and support because her abilities are star actions, unlike with a Reaver Commander where you can use Tactician or give out a reroll or whatever and still walk up and shoot your hand cannon. You can't really do that in Crucible Guard. So that is certainly the old style of list or of faction design. And then just in terms of like where they are overall, it's hard for me to say because I'm still pretty frustrated emotionally with what feels like a bait and switch in December, where they gave them this really good rule update that lasted for a matter of weeks, and then, in my opinion, over nerfed the faction. So it's hard for me to give a well-reasoned evaluation, given the relative recency of my emotional disappointment and how SFG handled that faction. Like, I would have just preferred they did not do the December update, personally. And I'm sure a lot of players feel the same way.
I mean, as someone who is on the receiving end of Crucible Guard making a comeback, I'm quite pleased that that you've soured on them, but that's mostly because I still have unresolved trauma there.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is they just don't excite me like a lot of the newer stuff does, like Gravediggers, like Storm Legion, Huxley, Thunderhead. There's so much spice and power and versatility in those factions that I'm just not feeling in Crucible Guard.
Right.
Well, Crucible Guard has some powerful tools, but like that's it. And if you're not playing those tools, or if those tools aren't working in a specific matchup, then it feels like maybe you're going uphill. I don't know. I haven't played them this year, so this is all just me looking at the rules and stuff.
I mean, I think that's fair enough. I'll offer sort of a counter to the trajectory of every other legacy faction, which is, as I mentioned, Army of Western Reaches, which is they're almost like a predator on an unsettled metagame. A settled metagame is where casters like Krios want to come out to play, because things they exploit or opportunities for their kit to shine through are there. Army of the Western Reaches feels very, very primed to pick on a meta that doesn't know which way is up and is maybe bringing too little business and say, it was barely enough last year. Is it enough now?
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know. I haven't played against Scorn yet in 2026, so it's hard for me to evaluate where they are. But certainly a list that taxes your opponent's ability to deliver quality attacks can find value in a developing meta, particularly when people have all these new toys and support pieces they want to play with. And you're seeing things like in Dusk, for instance, I think is one of the worst offenders, and then still old Umbre and Wintercore as well. You're seeing a situation where people are bringing all of this amazing support, and then when it comes down to it, they have like maybe 10 quality attacks they can make a turn. And playing something that really taxes that with resilient models and a high volume of them can certainly present a problem.
All right. Well, let's transition into Ryan aside, I don't think we have many legacy factions to talk about for the two events we're going to go over for the past 2 weeks. So let's move on from metagame meditations into metagame realities and talk about Rocky Mountain Rumble. So this was hosted 2 weeks ago in, I guess technically Aurora, Colorado, by the Zero Camp guys. Big shout out to Matt for emceeing the whole thing.
Yeah, they did a great job.
Yeah. And this was held at Genghis Con. What were your impressions of the con?
So first of all, I want to say I've been to 2 events at Zero Camp, Matt and his brother, right, Greg, who does the most of the streaming stuff that they've put on and or streamed at, and those are great dudes, and they put on a great event, so highly recommend in general. That said, Genghis Khan was a mess. The Rocky Mountain Rumble itself, perfect. Genghis Khan, the overall or the host convention, total mess. I don't know.
They picked an event space that was obviously too small for their head count,
and then they arranged it in a manner that seemed designed to only let the most determined people into the interior and then make it as difficult as possible to leave. Like, you need to really want to get in there to find your particular game's event space, because you're like navigating through all kinds of tables with like almost arranged in interlocking patterns. So you have to like do zigzags to get through in some places.
Yeah.
And it was so packed and so crowded, and there was like no hallways, weren't hallways. They were just filled with gaming tables and vendors. It felt like I was in another country, Alex. One that has
you
less space
you
than
felt
we
like
do.
you're in like Istanbul, like at the Grand Bazaar.
Yeah,
Like
like
I
this
would
is in
say
Colorado. There's a
the
lot of
con
property
yeah
and space in Colorado. Like there's no reason for this.
yeah
Not in New York. It's not in Manhattan, right? Like there's no reason for this.
yeah yeah. If you've ever been to a Chinatown and you go into an arcade, like I would say the con was definitely over allocated to vendor space, because like the vendor hallway was the one space you could go out to and have a few spare centimeters to expand your chest to breathe. Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
but then you're like stuck between somebody selling massive like LARP or cosplay props, and then the weird man in a wizard hat doing massages, and then
mhm.
obviously everybody else trying to use the hallway as a hallway to go places.
Right.
So it was kind of rough.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to set the table for some people, I used to talk about like back in the day, I actually got a surprising number of wins from running ambush units. Because what I would do is like I'd put my ambushers off to the side, and then when it came time to place my ambushers, I would go physically around to my opponent's side of the table and stand next to them and put my models down, 3 inches from their board edge, because I'm going to run into their backfield. But I'd take a moment and breathe and look up at the table from their perspective. And usually I would see something from their perspective that I would not see if I was just stuck to my end of the board, a strategic opening or something like that. That was really hard to manage at Rocky Mountain Rumble. I'm sure everyone has been at, tournaments where the space is so cramped, it's like ass to ass. I think our finals tables were like in such a position that if I had to get out to put ambush models, I would have to walk down essentially 2 tables and then squeeze myself against the wall and get out and come over to your side.
Hey, that was the best
Like,
table there. We had the most space. We had almost an entire table to our right or your left that we could put our stuff. That was like the luxury premium table to play at. So we were lucky that was our finals table.
Yeah. Well, nonetheless, Matt and Greg did a great job with what they had available to them.
We had a blast. It was a great event. I would go again and highly recommend it. I hope that Genghis Khan gets their stuff together next year if it's hosted there again, so that it's a little better organized and has a little better space.
Yeah. The company makes the trip alone well worth it. That was a room full of a bunch of sweet people.
Absolutely.
So we have Joe from Tyrants on the Field. Wizard's massage is not a spell I want cast on me.
A lot of people did. They paid well for that spell.
And then Big B's massaging hand. Or Mordekainen's relaxing palm.
I don't know. All I can think about is the what was the root tasting game sign that was
oh god yeah
rousing root tasting. There was some weird stuff
something
going on
like
there.
that. I still don't really
Not
know
related
what
to
that
the War
was
Machine.
about.
Apparently, Matt explained it. He went and found like the person who had set up that sign. Apparently, it's a game they were running that's a published game that is something about like Victorian era, like Cthulhu mushrooms or something. I don't know. It was very weird. I'm sure I'm butchering it.
Yeah, that's right.
It was strange.
Oh.
We were joking about people getting their root tasted all weekend.
Yeah, just to set the stage, we were in the War Games room. So it was us and Bolt Action and BattleTech and like Malifaux and
Blood
like,
Bowl,
yep. It
like all the miniatures.
it was two more game systems than you would want crammed in half the space that you'd expect.
Well, there were no Warhammer games from what I recall because I didn't hear a loud chorus of "Wog" at any point during the
Wag.
event. So, is Turnip 28 the name of this root tasting game? Is that what Moltra is telling us?
That's what I'm looking up now.
Don't look it up, Alex. We don't need to look this up.
I
I think
do
we've
see
talked enough
mushroom.
about the root tasting.
I do see Mushroom Man miniatures. All right. Well, oh yeah, it's definitely Turnip 28. I'm looking at it. That's 100% the game. All
I
right.
guess Moltra is a Turnip 28 fan. We found their number one fan. Maybe they
I
were there.
scrolled all the way down on their front page, and his contact info gives an address, Zagreb, Croatia.
It checks out.
All right. Let's transition over. Let's transition over to talking about your armies. So
Okay.
talk us through the pair you brought here.
So the pair starts with Kane because I think Kane is a powerhouse right now, and he's like your 90% drop. And before this event, I spent a lot of time going through different iterations and testing different things. And this is what I've landed on and what I'm largely still playing right now that feels really good. And it's basically you've got Kane who provides a good amount of broad support to his army. Turn over turn, a lot of range defense, but also some offensive support with Calamity. Heightened reflexes is sometimes valuable for more than just range defense. It puts out blur. You've got magic bullet sometimes if you need to like remove a support piece. So he has a good support role, and then he himself is just a turnover turn. I'm going to kill a few things to help my army be able to do what it needs to do to play scenario, or I'm going to thunderbolt some stuff. Or and I've always got the threat of my feet to remove a big piece at some point in the game and or keep your caster honest. But then the rest of the list is where a lot of the spice is.
Right.
And
And just to mention some spice here, you have a heavy airdrop, absolutely no Valiants, but that pays
right.
dividends in this army. So
Right. So the heavy airdrop is baseline. It could just be another cohort to score an objective if you need, or to go somewhere and contest, or just stand in the way. And that's always valuable, especially when you're running only two other cohorts here.
Yeah, otherwise you're sitting on Kane, Deuce, and Warbore, and that's it.
Right. And I got a brief aside to address Ryan McCoy's argument here that Brad's mustache is the big bad. Brad's mustache is not an antagonist. Brad's mustache is the god that you pray to when you need luck or support. Brad's mustache is Mother Mary, who you venerate and ask for assistance because it's your patron saint of Warmachine. So how dare you call it the big bad?
Brad's mustache, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of scoring points.
Exactly. Except it's the iron lip, right? It's not, we don't call it Brad's mustache. It's the iron lip. Anyway, so yeah, so the heavy airdrop is good just for playing scenario or being able to put in a relatively durable piece for 5 points to get in the way or do whatever. And obviously you can use it for offensive output. Sometimes you want to drop a skirmisher to take a gunshot. I did that in a game the other day. I was going for an assassination and I was like, I need more output. I can drop an ammo crate with this model, and then my rangers can drop a skirmisher, and then my gun mages can empower it to 2 while getting Deuce filled up between empowering him for 1 and accumulator. And then that skirmisher can tap the crate and double boost a gunshot, right? So like you can still use it for that. But then the new thing in 2026 is you can also airdrop a raider onto a Gravedigger Jack Marshal. And if it's a unit, then they all benefit from this, and they gain to shorthand it, flank this raider for that unit, basically. So you can really amp up the melee output of a unit like the Rowdies or Rangers, or if you're in dire straits and still have it, you can send in a unit of gun mages with their POW 8s and make them Mat 7 POW 8 weapon masters, which can get more work done than you might expect when you need it onto like a durable solo or something, right? Or take a chunk out of a heavy. So it's a really valuable card if you have the points for it, definitely. And then the rest of the list is a combination of models which are just independently good. They can operate relatively by themselves to do good work, and some tech choices. So like heavy machine guns, that's a real easy choice. Wow, we're getting so much cult of the lip stuff in chat right now.
I had to throw that one in myself.
Blessed is the fruit of thy follicles. Brad's going to be so embarrassed if he knew how to be embarrassed, but he doesn't.
Lucky for him.
For us. So some of the heavy machine guns are just a work of art right now in Gravediggers. If you're playing the faction, then you're looking real hard at a reason not to take some of them in every list, and looking even harder once you realize that to find a reason not to take 4. Like I don't have 4 in every list, but it is never a bad choice. You could be playing an entirely melee army that has 0 support for heavy machine guns and be like, I'm going to take 4 in my list because they shoot real good and they're not easy to kill.
And they support your army.
Flare is always useful. 6. Right, exactly. They remove stealth. They do so much.
Mm-hmm.
And they're always def 17 against range and arcane attacks. So they always have cover, and they always have blast resist. They have 5 wounds, which is special in this army for a warrior model. Yep. Don't make fun of me. But having more than 1 box is nice.
Yeah, they survive most things that aren't melee, and then maybe they survive melee if it's Marauder Crew.
And Sentry Fire is actually a really good rule. And it's not as good when there's just one of them, but when you have them grouped up into a pod of like 2, 3, or 4, it becomes significantly better. If your opponent like charges in some cavalry models or something to try to deal with them, even just runs to engage, they get to shoot multiple Sentry Fire shots if you have multiple models there, and you might just wipe out a unit or take out 1 or 2 of the models that are charging in. And that really hurts when your opponent wants to send in like a cav unit or a unit of like 40mm guys or something. If they lose 1 or 2, that can be devastating. So they're just really strong. Rangers, I don't think we need to explain, or the Black 13th or the Rowdies. They're just very good models that you can take that do a variety of things. Storm Veins, I don't want to take them out of the list, but at the same time, I hate that I have to pay 5 points for them. Windweaver is such a good ability sometimes, even if it's only on the 1 model, it can be worth taking them. And they're another unit that can score, that you can throw away to contest if you need to. Being able to give Electroleap to a model is randomly good sometimes. Like you can give it to Warbore or Iris or Deuce or whatever, if that's going to be an effective play. So they provide some good support and some interesting tech options. But they're also like perpetually on the chopping block for me, but I'm not taking that just yet.
Well,
Iris,
I hear
sorry, go ahead.
I hear this all the time with people who are like, well, why would I want to play a model that got worse? Like Stormveins lost the ability to blah, 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 2/3 of the time. And it's like, well, okay, you were over indexing on how much you used the range reduction, because it actually turns out that one Windweaver accomplishes 50% or more of the uses you were putting it to in the first place. And the other is their suite of abilities is still pretty good. The last is this army has a billion solos, many of which are relatively position agnostic. Windweaver doesn't need to be useful all game. And this is why old Umbri players would like say that Windwall was an irreplaceable, or Windstorm was an irreplaceable spell for them. And they'd always rack it. And they'd only ever cast it once and not think about the implications of that for the greater flow of the game. It turns out it's another unit whose time they have to spend like supporting is actually like quite delimited. And in fact, it's a great use of 5 points if they just go and stand on something, partway through.
Yeah, my big complaint is that they can't fight very well. Everything else, literally everything else in this list, fights surprisingly well, except the Storm Veins. What they do have going for them is 5 boxes, but they're still only 12, 14. So they're not durable, but they're durable in the sense
No.
that they have actual boxes. And so that makes them like 5 armor essentially more or 4 armor essentially more durable. I guess 5 because they're arm 14 than a unit of rangers, for instance, right? Because they have functionally against a single attack arm 19 versus arm 13, right? So sometimes that differential matters if you want to look at it kind of funny like that. But my biggest complaint is they don't fight. They've got a rat 5 spray 6 for each of them, and that's it, which is really bad. But they're a 5-point unit that you can throw away to contest or just stand in the way when you need to. And so I guess that's something, or they can sit back and score while your other models go and do more important things. But when the Windweaver does matter, it really matters. I hate that you no longer have the redundancy of 2 other models with Windweaver, because if it really matters, you don't want your opponent to be able to remove it. And then the Polarity Field has not come up yet, and they can't channel anymore, which is also sad. But like I said, the Electroleap on a model can come into play and be relevant. They compete directly with something like another heavy airdrop or a unit of gun mages plus a spare point, right? Like they've got some really stiff competition. So it's not an easy choice to take them.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well, let's talk about Sir not appearing in this tournament, which is list 2.
Buck Hasker does some strong things, and you recall from other conversations we've had that I was initially very down on him. I played one game into Baranova with him, and I really did not like the way that he operated. And that was a list where I had battle group models for him primarily. And I went back to the drawing board and changed the way that I was thinking about him and how I was building the list. And when I take Magnus and Invictus, I feel a lot better about his kit because there's a lot less stress on him personally, both in where he has to be to support his army and the amount of resources he has to put into it. So, and there are some matchups where his feat with the rough terrain and the mines are going to be very relevant. And so he's in here as a pair for Kane because I feel like he covers some of Kane's weaknesses wherever I might find them, stronger than some of the other casters because nobody else really does any kind of real control in the army. And this isn't really much control, but it's some. And that's the thing that appeals to me here as an off list is that if I feel like I'm going to struggle with Kane, at least I can try to leverage some control, plus an army that has powerful melee capability if you're in its face and it has to use it. And I think Hasker does that better than anybody else in the faction. So that's why he's here in the pair.
Right. It's like minimum viable product control. And I actually really like the inclusion of Magnus because I think this is something we've talked about, if not on this show, then at least between you and I, is the marginal value of composition to support the rest of your list. Like some casters get 80 points deep and they're, any additional points spent on supporting them or them supporting something else is like, you get diminishing returns. And there's a lot of casters who hit that threshold, surprisingly early. And one of the best things they can take is a super junior. So I think that's a very sage choice to put him in, even if he doesn't show up here. Speaking of another choice, Stephen Williams asking, what does Beaker do for in the list?
Beaker has a 16-inch melee threat, and with Buck, can actually get to a point where if you invest everything in him, he might kill another heavy. And that's the primary thing that he does in the list is have this 16-inch threat that your opponent has to consider. Right. In other lists, like if you're sending him 16 inches with I guess there aren't that many other lists where you can send him 16. But like if you're sending him 14 inches with like a Vargas, then it's like, all right, you get Beaker here, and then what? Like he's not going to kill the thing. But with Buck, at least you have the threat of applying Carnage and Silence of Death, and then still obviously augment from the fuel canisters that you can be up to POW 21. You can give him a reroll with Eilish in this list so that if he needs a 6 to hit, he goes up from what is it, like a 62% chance to hit to an or 72% chance to hit to a 92% chance to hit if you have a reroll for the 6. And he's got sustained attack, so even though you have to pay to charge and you only have the one initial melee, you get to a point where he starts threatening other heavies. And your opponent has to respect that. They have to decide if it's worth the risk of you rocketing this model 15 inches up the table with 1 inch melee to kill something, especially if that something is their caster. Like, do they want to take that damage? So he's in there as a long range deterrent. I can tell you he's not in my list that I'm playing with Buck right now, but it's a thing that I was trying. And then he's an arc node, which is helpful sometimes for shifting around spells. He's got a good spray for skirmishing, and with the hit and run card, you can walk up, take your spray, and then channel a spell through him, and then hit and run, or we can charge something and do the same thing, right? So he's very mobile, and he redeploys from one part of the table to another very quickly because of reaction drive as well. So he's basically your zoomy model on the table that goes real far, moves real fast. He keeps up with something like Plugger with AD, the aggressive Heavy Boiler Valiant in terms of the turn 1 movement. And he's got resistances, which is nice for one of the matchups I was considering playing him into, which was Shadow Flame's Shard, because most of their guns, most of their War Beast guns are tight.
Some way.
So,
yeah.
But I don't know that ultimately he makes the cut, but that was the rationale behind him.
Yeah, it makes sense to me, and it sounds like he's out already. But we're very much in experimentation mode, so there's a ways to go. Just to run through mine real quick. A few weeks ago, I did a what do you call it? An off the scrap heap for Firequill. I'm essentially running the same list, although at this point, after a few weeks of large events, probably going to figure out some substitutions for these Fire Guardians. Just not getting value out of them.
For all of them or just one?
At least one, maybe two. We'll see. And then in the second list slot at Rocky Mountain, I was running Captain Shadow Tongue, King with Bulbous Chomper, Triton, double main guns, Virager, double Booty Boss, Hargor Stormjaw, Madame Moriarty, double Dirges, Sully, double Surgeons, which I still get flack about taking, and like this model's value. Also, now it can stand your dudes up, which is also awesome. Like,
I think the Surgeon's incredible right now, and the fact that it gained like AoE, and it's not just stand them up, isn't it also like not stationary and a number of other things? The continuous effects go away. It's a really good solo.
You might be right. Yeah, it might be put the fires out on a star action.
It basically is. And the fact that they can, is it even a star action? They can do two
it's
things.
A battle plan. It's an anytime.
It's kind of wild how good they are now, and I'm surprised I don't see them more.
Yeah. So PSA, take Surgeons.
No, don't take Surgeons. It's an awful model. Nobody wants to see it on the table. I spent a lot of time knocking your warrior models down or setting them on fire or corroding them. I don't want you to remove any of that and bring a guy back. Don't do
it. That's fair enough. Rounding out the list, we have Lockabash Brothers, which is going to be every Brian's list forever till the end of this year. One bosun unit, 2 tapper units, and a pig boarding party. So I'll kill the screen share and let's go into games. So why don't you open us up with we get there round 1 on Saturday, and it's trench warfare, and you're playing against Will with Oriax. Talk us through this game.
Well, first of all, Will is a sweet dude. Always love chatting with that guy and playing with him. His Oriax list I was actually pretty impressed by. It's got Anathea in it, and with the changes to how Oriax works this year, you've obviously got the defensive aspects of Oriax, but now you have the Fate Blessed. So you've got the control area wide reroll for focus that Horisk used to have. Now that's on Oriax. So you've got an incredible amount of offensive support just from existing for Oriax. And then you still have the ability to threat range increase by spending a soul to TK a model, but now you can do that on any number of models that you want, that you have souls for. So that was improved. And then between Curse of Shadows that now is on Oriax's card and Disintegration from Anathea, it gives me a lot of vibes that remind me of playing a Lucas list, which, as you know, I loved and played for a long time. Or playing Moraine even, where you get to do this double debuff at range that affects your range attack, so that now when you are shooting a model, it is -4 armor, and all of a sudden all of your sort of trivial like plinking skirmishing attacks become deadly to whatever model you've chosen to kill. So like your POW 12s are now killing heavies, which also feels a lot like how a lot of my Gravediggers lists play, right? But instead of the double debuff, you're using maybe Calamity and ammo crates, or ammo crates and volume fire or something, right? But it's got that kind of range pressure that I really appreciated seeing it put together on paper, and then also seeing it on the table. Like at one point in the game, we're playing trench warfare, right? And on the right side of my table by my 50, I had Warbore, and he had, I believe, a Sky Raider that he had run up along that side. And I could not move up Warbore to contest or to jockey for a position or score that 50 unless I killed the Raider first, because with a double armor debuff, that Raider is going to get the Bless card and just mostly kill Warbore. Right? Like, think about it. That's a huge threat. Plus, like a few other guns, and all of a sudden it's dead. Or just the power of like disintegration and a couple other like POW 12 gunshots, and all of a sudden it's dead. So it does some powerful things on the table that I think are worth looking at for people. So I like the list that Will built, and I think he played it well. And ultimately, that game came down to me. He was a little too aggressive with his balloons position, and I was able to get Kane in range, and I blew my feet on what would have been bottom of 2 in order to kill the balloon, which is an early feat. I mean, I go through so many games where I don't feat with Kane at all, but like this was an obvious, I need this balloon gone. I can do it with Kane. I'm going to do that if I think I can be safe. So I killed the balloon. I gave myself heightened reflexes, and I was camping, I want to say 2 in cover with heightened reflexes and force barrier. And he went for a spell assassination because he had feated top of 1 and had 5 souls from that. And I think he needed, what is Oriax, a 7? Is that right? Yeah, I think Oriax is a 7. So he needed 14s to hit me, and he gets 3 of them essentially with rerolls and boosts. And Kane had taken like 3 damage a turn before from keeping up Bolero on the Black 13 through a censure. And I think I ended the game with 2 or 3 health left after his assassination. he hit the first natural 14. I was like, Will, stop. Don't do it like this. And then he hit the second 14 for the second spell on the reroll. And I was like, I don't like where this is going, Will. And then he missed the final one and didn't hit it on the reroll. So I lived with like 2 or 3 boxes, and it was terrifying.
I mean, he's lucky in multiple ways, and one of the principal modes of luck is actually that all he needed to hit Kane was 14s.
Yeah, I mean, with like, rerolls, it's pretty scary. So
yeah, I mean, 14s are a roll against Kane that most people would dream of.
Yeah, he's got the combat coordination reroll, which is free. And then any other reroll beyond that, he has to spend focus for. So at a certain point, you're taking away from your ability to cast more spells or boost more rolls because you reroll. But the main thing is whether you can hit with Kane. So you're going to spend the focus to reroll those attack rolls every time to try to hit. So yeah, it was a very high pucker factor, and I almost died.
Mm-hmm. Was not the only high pucker factor of the day.
No, in fact, it was not the highest pucker factor of the day. We saved what? No, it was for that day, but not for the event.
Oh, okay, yeah, that's true. Sunday had some extra pucker.
Sunday was electrifying. We'll say that.
We'll put it that way. Any other thoughts on your game with Will?
Now, just that after that game, you're going to hear this a lot, I think, early on in a brand new sandbox like this, but I had read Oriax's card, and the meta in terms of like what Orgoth players are playing is all Kishtar, Butcher, and Sabrath. 3 incredibly powerful casters, so it's obvious why people are playing them. Nobody is playing Oriax, so I had not seen Oriax on the table yet. And I don't want to say that I dismissed Oriax, but Oriax is not high on my radar for things to be concerned about or to think about. But seeing the list on the table, I can see why Will is playing it, and it seems like it has potential. And I'm excited to see how he does with the list if he sticks with it and continues to play it. And I think you're going to see a lot of casters like that in most factions that aren't one of the like power 3 that most players are playing, that still have a lot of strength tucked away, that is just waiting for somebody to put in the time and the effort to figure out on the table. And then other people are going to see it and be like, I don't really like Sabrath, doesn't really vibe with me. And I think maybe Oriax has more turnover turn impact on the game than Sabrath does. Maybe I'll try Oriax. And at some point, I think you're going to see more of a balance in terms of like there's 1 or 2 other casters beyond those power 3 in the Mark IV factions that people will start playing with some consistency that people are going to have to think about and be prepared for. And I think Oriax is one of them. Like if you don't have a plan going into Oriax, then you might be in trouble. So it's worth at least looking at her card. Is Oriax a woman? I can't tell. I hear
Oriax is a man.
Oriax is a man. So you have to look at his card and read his stuff and understand what your game plan is going to be into Oriax. So you might find yourself getting stuck.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. And I mean, I haven't put enough thought into the like how Orgoth slots into the meta game right now. But for a lot of factions, their caster stable fits into like the strong bad team girl squad where there's the ugly one. And then the rest of them are like, here's 4 casters, and your optimal pair is going to be pick 1 of 2 from category A and 1 of 2 from category B. Oriax, and this could not be true of Orgoth. I feel like it's very strongly true of Khador right now, but Oriax seems like a pretty good category B caster. That he's not going to be terrifically uncommon in pairings, and if I had to guess, it would probably be like pick 1 of Butcher or Oriax.
I think it's going to be pick 1 of Oriax or Sabrath, and then pick 1 of Kishtar or Butcher.
Oh yeah, that's probably fair too. And I mean, Orgoth is probably the faction that defies that level of categorization the most, because I think particularly Oriax and Sabrath have such versatile plans.
And they're both such spellcasters that I think they are going to be the 2 that you pick between for the 2 of them.
Yeah.
And while Butcher and Kishtar are so wildly different, neither of them is a spellcaster like Sabrath or Oriax, so they won't compete for that spot, is my thought.
Makes sense. I mean, it's like why you probably... I mean, you have seen a lot of Lilith Valix so far, but I think as the metagame settles, like for instance, Lilith, or it's going to be strongly Lilith or Valix, because they run an extremely powerful first order strategy, but they both kind of do the same thing.
I don't know. I think you're going to see Lilith in every serious Shadow Flame Shard pair. And then the question is what your second list is going to be, whether it's Valix or Kyrax or something else. But I think those 2 are sort of the big considerations. And Kyrax is really good now. So not that he wasn't really good last year, but he's really good. You might see Nixian or something else, or Shyrus, right? Like their stable is pretty wild how good it is right now. But Lilith, I think, is the alpha dog there.
I was talking to Aaron Allen at Stumptown, and he's like, "Yeah, my biggest problem with the Lilith matchup is that I keep hitting Kyrax drops, so I haven't played Lilith yet." Oh
Dauntless
man,
Resolve Knights are kind of obnoxious. So
yes, yes, they will steal all of your time. You
it's
will
not even
waste.
the armor. Like that's a part of it, but it's the tough steady on top of the armor, which as you know, drives me absolutely nuts as a rule
It
combination.
does.
We should delete it from the game. I thought they were doing that when they went into Mark IV, and then they immediately went on a path to just slowly reintroduce it as much as possible, and I hate it.
Yeah, I would like to see them do a rules end run around that, especially now that 100% of everybody is on the app. Like, you could probably have a manageable system that wouldn't be feasible with tokens now. All right. Well, I'm just gonna cover my round one real quickly. My round one was the only game where I dropped Shadow Tongue. This was against Dalton, who was running a winter core pair. He put down Savrin into me. Savrin came down with a Mastodon, Bison, big old support staff, suppressors, double shock trooper gunners, and double winter core infantry, along with some sniper. Oh my god, what is my dog? Dog, what are you doing? I have my camera off because my camera's been misbehaving all night. But Stinky just turned around to me with the guiltiest look on his face. I don't know what he was getting into, but it was something.
You're gonna find out later.
Yeah, apparently. Anyways, so this matchup, I joked with people describing it like, well, I started with 18 Marauder crew on the board, and at the end of the game, my opponent killed 32 Marauder crew. Just based on his list pair and based on specifically the terrain we had on this board, there was a tight knot of 3 obstructions, and then in between the 3 obstructions, cover scatter terrain. So there was a whole quadrant of this board that was like +4 defense. And I'm like, I don't feel great about Fire Quill here necessarily. I think if I just keep pounding that, like, scenario's going to take longer button, things will go good for me. So that was kind of the story of one side of the board, is just keeping myself in the fight and pulling down winter core models, as quickly, like, hopefully faster than his attrition could keep up with. On the other side of the board, it was King versus Mastodon. And I tell you what, I lifted heaven and earth to ensure that this escorted melee range 3 Mastodon did not drop on my King. Because colossal on colossal violence, you generally don't want to be the guy that gets got.
Yeah.
So we were doing like pushing tricks, like, oh, I'm gonna dance around your distance. Okay, now I'm gonna put like Lockabash and a unit of Marauders in your path, and on and on and on. I was going through a lot of maneuvers to make sure that this POW 24 model did not land on me. It turned out it landed on me in, I think, the last turn of the game, where I was able to get that attrition edge from revives, and Dalton felt like he had to go for something, pushes the Mastodon onto the King and does like maybe 30 damage to it. And I'm like, why did I spend 4 rounds worrying about this? Like, boy,
It's
I
a
should
Warjack, Alex. Like it's not a Trichimerics or a Gorger. It's a Warjack. That's the problem.
Yeah. No, yeah. But so this happened to me at Stumptown too. I'm like, I feel like I really should have sat down and done the math on this better. I mean, the real reason actually is in the early game, there's a lot more ranged attacks incidentally that can be directed into the King and pick up the spare. But in the late game, it's kind of like, okay, what else you got?
I think the only Warjack Colossal you really need to worry about is like the Phantasm with Seraphel, right? Because those crits will take you down.
Speaking of, I spent an entire game at Stumptown fearing the Phantasm with Seraphel connecting with my king. And under Seraphel, he crits maybe 1 to 2 of his attacks, maybe 3. He dropped the Phantasm on my king. He only critted 1 of the attacks, and it turns out math says he needs to crit 3. So he also didn't get close to killing it. And I'm like scratching my head like, okay, probabilistically I should fear this, but like, boy, in practice did that not turn out. Anyways, that game ended with a scenario victory for me. It was long, it was grindy. There were not a ton of models left on the board. I had no Marauder crew, but I was able to cobble together the points. Let's move on to round 2, where we find ourselves playing Fault Line. First, before we get to you were playing against Christian Combs running Nicane. How do you feel about Fault Line? This is I've talked to a lot of people now about the packet, and I get the sense that this scenario is pretty controversial. Where are you on this one?
I don't know that it's controversial so much as everybody else is wrong, and I'm very confused about it. But I appear to be the only one who sees it this way. So maybe there's a universe somewhere where I'm the one that's wrong, but it hasn't seemed that way on the
It's
table.
not this one.
So I love Fault Line because it's a scenario that forces conflict, but isn't decisive most of the time. So and unlike some scenarios where like if you go second and get a major score, like if you get your opponent's cash on Trench Warfare, if you're going second, like they're probably losing if they can't kill your caster, because it's really hard to come back with enough points when you can't get your opponent's cash, right? Fault Line is a scenario where your opponent can score like 5, 6, 7 points. And if you didn't give them anything and just let them have that, you're like, all right, now I score my 5, 6, 7 points after killing a bunch of your models. Your turn. And that feels great as player 1. And moreover, and I'm sorry, let me back up for just a second. The narrative that I hear and the opinion I hear from people so frequently with Fault Line is that it is devastatingly bad to go first, that it is a huge disadvantage to go first because your opponent can score so many points. Going second on Fault Line, being the first to score. To me, because you can contest your close 40s so easily as player 1, most of the time my opponent
so hard to disrupt or interfere with.
Right, because they're so close to you, you get to, as long as you're not incredibly slow, like if your army is actual speed 4 models, maybe you'll struggle. But I can usually put stuff there that my opponent isn't going to be able to kill on bottom of 2. Or bottom of 1, whatever, but like isn't going to be able to remove because I'm projecting enough threat from my initial position there that they're not going to score either of my close 40s on bottom of 2. And essentially I can let them take both 50s and both of their 40s and say, that's fine, you can score 5 points because I know that I will be able to score back at least 3 or 4 points myself and contest. And also be the first one to get some attritional gain in the back and forth. And so I feel good about that. And in most games, if I'm able to contest my 40s, my opponent now has to decide, do I give my opponent free models just to stop them from scoring those points, knowing that it's not going to win me the game because they're going to be able to score back enough points regardless? Or do I not contest and not even get a scenario advantage? Like I'm going to score 4 or 5 and they're going to score 2. So I have not even an appreciable lead here. They have to make that choice going second. So Fault Line is one of the scenarios that to me feels better for first player, at least for the kind of armies that I play. Maybe it's different for people with different armies. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm right there with you on in the same perspective. Your engagement pattern has to change a little bit depending on your ability to offend against your distant 40s. And you know, if your ability to offend is limited, then you probably consolidate more toward your close ones. But in general, yeah, it feels great going first because like you're just like, here are your points. You're welcome to them. Please give me models. Put models in my mouth. I want them. Let me eat them.
Exactly.
Man. Okay, so you wound up with McCain into a Kane matchup. Talk to us about how this game went against Christian.
So Christian, another sweet dude. Everybody who played at this event was fun to play with and an awesome person.
I did not encounter anyone here who was not absolutely sweet.
Right. So this was my first opportunity to see Deathjack on the table, so that was cool. And the physical model looks awesome, and Christian had painted his army beautifully as well, so that was really cool. And his list had Deathjack and Hades and a Necro Harvester. So it was very elite for a Crix list, which I get with Nick Kane. But then he also had Night Terrors and Furies, obviously, and some Sludge Thralls and Brute Thralls, and some support, but he did not have any Mechana Thralls at all. So it was, yeah, so into Kane especially, it felt like a situation where I get to pick a model each turn and remove it. And on a scenario like Fault Line, I don't have to enter his threat ranges to do it either. So it felt like an uphill battle for him in that match. And I think that he made some positioning errors, so I was able to do more work than he could afford to let me do. And so the game sort of wound down pretty quickly. But the fact that he had these two very expensive Warjacks between Hades and Deathjack, and no way to prevent me from engaging them fully with my range attacks, the game went about how you would expect, given that that matchup. And I think the highlight of the game for me was probably turn 3, top of 3. My one goal was to kill Deathjack, and my plan to do it was to shoot him with Kane, put Calamity onto him, and then play the hit and run card to back up to my place of safety behind this obstruction, sort of near the kill box. And so Kane went up, I shot him with a Witch Mark, tagged him with Calamity, shot him with a Heartseeker, boosted damage, because why not? He had Banishing Ward on Hades at this point. And like absolutely blasted the damage roll, which was nice. And then the Rowdies charged, dropped a Raider, and then finished off Deathjack by themselves. And both of us sort of looked at the table afterwards and were like, huh, that was something to see.
That went a little better than expected.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, the Rowdies do a lot of damage to Deathjack with a Raider and Calamity. So I didn't think they were going to kill it by themselves. I had other models ready to bring to bear to do that, specifically Warbore. Right. But they sure do output when you give them flank and Calamity on the target. So that's pretty cool. Yep.
So after Calamity and Mortal Fear, they're still dice -10, right?
One of them was in Mortal Fear because I'm an idiot.
And okay. But you had the option to have none of them in.
Right. I charged them in and then looked at where to place the rest. And I was like, oh, those are Furies right there. I should place these other two not in Mortal Fear. But I had like at least a half an inch to play with, and I was like just in 8 inches of one of them, with the charging model. So yeah, if you Mortal Fear and Calamity, those cancel each other out. So they're PAL 9s. They're off. Is he a 19 or 20? He's a 19, right?
Who is? Deathjack? I think he's a 19. Oh God,
No, he's a 20. Sorry, he's a 20.
Oh, he is. So he is 20.
Yeah, so you're an 11 if you are in Mortal Fear and have Calamity. So on 5 dice, you're averaging like 6.5 for the melee swings. So you're getting like 19 damage from their melee. Plus you're getting a slug gun from Dalton that is dice off 6 with a reroll. So we're going to call that like another 20 damage conservative, another 1. So you go to 20 conservatively. And then the 2 sprays from Frank's at off 8 with rerolls. Maybe you get 1 more. So you're doing around like 20 to 22 damage with just them at that point. And that's leaving Deathjack on like 12 health. So it doesn't take a lot to pick him up after that. And if you can avoid Mortal Fear, like actually the big mistake I made was when I was planning out my turn, I was like, all right, the Black 13th are going to shoot the Furies and I'm going to kill 1 or 2 of them because they're just going to aim here and shoot them. And then I'm going to, after I put Calamity and Death Check, then I'm going to charge with the Rowdies, drop this Raider, and they're just going to blow them out of the water. And then guess who I activated first? The Rowdies, not the Black 13. So, and I still could have positioned out of it. But the point is, like, if you can mitigate the Mortal Fear, they do a lot of damage.
Yeah.
And I think his big mistake there was he didn't put Banishing Ward on Deathjack that turn. It should have been on Deathjack before he ran over
keep
there.
It alive and to discourage even taking a swing at him.
I mean, I still would have killed him, but it would have been different in how I had to do it.
Sure, and it would have involved more pieces.
Right, it would have involved Kane feeding for 1 to finish him off. It would have been Warboar shooting. It still would have been the Rowdies in there with flank, and then Kane would have gone up and finished it off with his feet. And so the feet would be gone. I don't know whether the feet would end up being necessary there, but it's insurance, if nothing else. So, and like maybe the Black 13th have to shoot it. I don't know. But it's a bigger commit than if I could put Calamity on it. And I think Deathjack is a more important piece than Hades as well. So I think that was a mistake that he made and obviously learned from. But even still, I think the list itself with no shield guards whatsoever is a rough ask into Kane, who's just sitting back there with Blur on himself all game, as far away as possible.
As a Brine Bloods player, playing any army with no shield guards feels hands-fillingly terrifying right now.
I get that.
But to the amusing Panda audience out there, if anybody can assemble a flex tape Phil Swift stabbing the bucket with the knife and going, "That's a lot of damage," with Dalton's face over it, I would be infinitely grateful.
Dalton, your round 1 opponent, or Dalton of Rowdies fame?
Dalton from the Rowdies.
Okay. That's a lot of damage.
I definitely did eat. That's a lot of damage from some Calamity flanking Rowdies. Also,
you sure tournament. Did. Also, very electrifying.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that game was a lot of damage. For me, round 2, I hit Audrey, formerly of the San Diego meta, and now of the Colorado meta, and soon to be of the Welsh meta, or so she tells me.
Audrey, World Traveler.
Yep. Yeah, she's experiencing a lot of Warmachine on her way around.
Audrey's great, and they're very enthusiastic about the game. They took a break for a while, like when they moved from San Diego to Colorado. I don't think they were playing for a long time. Came back recently, and so fired up to play and improve that after day 1 of the Rocky Mountain Rumble, I was back in my hotel room looking at Discord and saw Audrey on there in one of the Discords LFGing for War Table games after 3 rounds of Warmachine at an IGQ. So good on them.
Yeah, that's an impressive commitment to the game. So our matchup came down Firequill Kishtar. Features of our board, there were some obstructions peeled off to the side, sort of, if you imagine the diagonal line of Fault Line, imagine obstructions making an X shape across that line, but there's nothing in the center. We were fighting on a parking lot.
Oof. 2 Guncasters.
Yeah.
Just pistols at noon.
Yeah, pistol. Well, it turned out to be tongues at top of 2. So the king technically outranges the effective danger zone of the tyrants, at least on the main guns, and so I eat as much table space as possible. Audrey positions relatively conservatively, preparing for the punch in. I also push forward a unit of Marauder crew. Like, here they are. They got high noon on them. They got duck and cover on them. We're coming for your close objectives. We're gonna be there, prepare for it. Kishtar doesn't like that unless you're gonna throw both hunter tyrants at it and say, we will clear these warrior models. It's not great when doing so also says we will get murdered by this colossal next turn. So Audrey doesn't bite on the bait. However, when I get to untap again, King just starts pitching attacks into tyrants left and right. Like, we're going for crit knockdowns. We're putting as much damage as possible because the King will die to 2 quad bolter shredder tyrants. We're just trying to make it be 1. Audrey winds up accepting a hyper aggressive move on one of these tyrants, and the King is immediately like, okay, cool, change targets. Frog runs up, grabs that one, and punches it. We had to throw a lot of extra damage rolls to put it in the dirt, but I'm actually able to turn the tide in this shooting match here. And it turns out to be Audrey is kind of running out of pieces because the Marauder crew with Bosun get delivered, and I also do some filthy knockdown disruption on the other tyrant. So it turned out to be a bit of a rough game, with me commanding the distant objectives and the central objectives pretty handily. And that turned into a scenario win on, I want to say, 4? Something like that. Moral of the story, be wary with your hyper aggressive moves lest you move into something worse.
Yeah, it's not always the right choice. Just because you can, sometimes you're walking into death.
Also, I've been saying for like 3 weeks now, like, God, I really wish I could cut these pig shockers from this this list, but like,
you can't.
Every now and again, they just like, oh, I just win this matchup so hard because of these disruption electro leap shots. Like, I guess I stay in one more week.
That unit's really good, and I'm a big fan of ranged disruption and knockdown tech as well. Right now, I've got it in my Kane list. You can bully models so hard sometimes that for that reason alone, I would keep them in. And then range electroleap is also incredibly powerful. Even if your accuracy is not super high, you'll often find targets that are low enough defense that your opponent has to position around if they are aware of the threat and internalize it.
Yeah,
no spoiler there.
A lot of people are bringing defense 8 models that they have to position around very carefully.
Yeah, and as we all know, Invictus is going to be very common in the meta.
Yeah.
Probably for the rest of the year.
Oh, God, Invictus hates shockers. He hates those guys just plinking him. It's his nightmare.
And your list has a lot of knockdown abilities. Like, Momentum doesn't work, but the King has knockdown, and you have some other knockdowns in there. And the ability to knock down
3 cracks at a 40%er on Invictus. He'll take that every time.
Yeah, if you get that knockdown, then you're like, okay, cool. My shockers walk up and one guy shoots Invictus, and I can ignore you for the rest of the term, which is fantastic, right? To be able to say I'm ignoring this 20-point super heavy and focusing on other parts of the board. That's a big opportunity to have when you can take it. So I really like the shockers in the list.
Yeah, I mean, I do too. My instincts are telling me to to dump them, but they stay.
You know what? You're right, Alex. Get them out of your list. They're terrible.
Okay.
If you say so, we want to need them on the table. I certainly don't want to see them on the table.
They're staying through Adepticon.
Damn.
All right. Round 3, we drew a pressure point. So this is the most board sensitive of the scenarios. You had Grimrob, who wound up in 3rd place, second place, running Seraphel on this scenario. So 1, tell us about how the game went, but 2, tell us how did pressure point shake out in your game?
I hate this scenario because, like Color Guard last year, it's so table dependent that you will often have horrible games simply because the table, while not an objectively bad table, just didn't play well with pressure point. So our particular table was not awful, but it also wasn't great. One of the common
Well, your
complaints I hear about
particular
this one
table
is, oh, it's
also it wasn't the terrain layout, but it was the mat.
okay. There's also that. It was this obnoxious mat that was covered in various colors of red and was just
This obnoxious official Steamforged Games mat.
yeah. It was like somebody vomited 8 different colors of psychedelic lava onto the table, and my eyes couldn't focus on anything. It was like a Where's Waldo, and every time I looked at anything on the table, I was trying to find Waldo and being distracted by a bunch of random nonsense. I hate it. I hated this map.
It's like the old Frontline Gaming, their original city map did that for me. This is like square cobblestones, but it's on a slight angle, like it's not straight up and down.
Yeah.
And it's just like hypnotic in the worst ways to look at.
This was worse than that because it utilized the color red, which our brains are predisposed to alert to, and it sends signals to our brains, unlike gray or other colors. So, on top of being way too busy, it was also way too stressful for my brain to process information. So, yeah, I
you're
hated the
getting
map.
cortisol spiked by the board.
Big way, big way. And then our table was not abysmal for pressure point, but one of the common criticisms I hear about pressure point is that it's so favored for second player because you can send the flags, the first player's flags, the attacker's flags. Sorry, I should start getting used to using the new lexicon. You can send the attacker's flags to the center line or your side of the table sometimes. I haven't had that happen in practice. What I have had happen is
Me
to not
either.
be able to send both of the attacker's flags anywhere that I care to send them. And this is one of those matches where one of the attacker's flags, no matter which side of the table I chose, was going to be beyond my ability to contest if I didn't have ambush models, which feels not great because there's no advantage to going second there whatsoever. There's a big old center objective that is worth a lot of points, and your opponent going first gets to take up the board space to make it really unfavorable for you to send a cohort there. So I don't like this scenario at all. That said, I did have to go second because I lost the roll, and no matter which side I picked, I wasn't going to have favorable scenario terrain selections. So I picked the best of the worst choices there. And so there was one that I was never going to be able to contest. And then the other one of his flags was one that I was going to easily be able to contest, but never score because it was a giant house and he can just park models behind it. And I can park models behind it, but I'm never going to be able to kill those models until we're at a point in the game where attrition has gone a particular way. And like either I'm way up on attrition, so he has to start pulling models over, or I can divert the majority of my force over there. But there's no flank action that I can do for either of his flags that's going to allow me to score points. And on top of that, one of my 2 flags had to be a cloud that was almost in the center of the table. That was really close to the center of the table. So that felt bad for me as well. But I did the best that I could with it. And Rob gave me a really good game. And I want to say like top of 1, he positioned his stuff with like a Spectre with Gravewind on my left side of the table by that big house I was talking about. And he had an Eidolon over there with True Sight. And then he had his Phantasm down the middle with Arcane Propulsion and the Void Engine and all the shield guards. And then he had his other Eidolon on towards bias to the right side of the table along with his Arc Node. And then bottom of 1, I basically positioned a module on the left side prepared to receive his Spectre and be able to defeat it so that I can score my scenario terrain on the left side, because I know that I'm not going to be able to score the 50 on bottom of 2, and I can't contest his far flag on my right side of the table. So I must score my 2 points to stay in this game on bottom of 2, because the best I can do is prevent him from scoring the 50 in his flag, but he's going to score his flag by default. So I need to make sure I can defeat this Spectre that he's going to send in to contest.
Right. So even being ostensibly in control of the scenario rhythm, the board was just such that like Rob Rob is going to go up on points on you, and you're essentially fighting back from that.
Well, he's not going to go up on points, but I'm going to have to sacrifice material to prevent him from scoring the 50, or he will go up on points. And
I
importantly,
gotcha.
he can park his Phantasm within 3 inches of the 50 in such a way that I won't be able to effectively kill it on bottom of 2. So I'm not scoring that, and I'm not contesting one of his flags. So I must be able to score my 2. Otherwise, we're going to score the same number of points on bottom of 2, and that would feel really bad for me because I'm still not going to be able to contest his flag on the next turn. And I'm probably still not going to be able to score the 50 on my next turn. So I have to at least get 1 point up on him on bottom of 2. That was my thought going into it. And if I have to spend any more than 1 turn dealing with this Spectre, then I'm also going to be in bad shape because I don't have the resources to do that and fight his Phantasm with the entire bubble of support that he has in the center. So going into my first turn, foremost in my mind is he's going to send the Spectre at me, and I need to be able to absolutely blow it off the table ASAP and just get that done with. So I sent Iris, I want to say 2 of my heavy machine guns and the Black 13th over there, and tried to position my machine guns basically on the edge of my table in such a way that if he moves the Spectre beyond this house, I get to aim and take shots at it. Mm-hmm. And then I want Iris over there to be able to potentially charge and disrupt it, and the Black 13th to be able to potentially do momentum shots and put a bunch of damage into it. So these are my thoughts. And I made one major mistake, and that's that I should have given Force Barrier to Iris that turn. I had her in position, dug in, knowing that if he sends up the Spectre, he's going to need a 12 to hit and a 10 to kill for damage. And the odds on that are pretty low. But if I give her Force Barrier, they're microscopic. And that's realistically what I should have done here. Turns out he moved up the Spectre, rolled the 12 to hit, and the 10 plus for damage. So I lost Iris, which isn't, it's not a big enough blow to my module over there to prevent me from killing the Spectre, but it certainly makes it more difficult. Right. That said, he did the things that we expected, right? He moved his center brick, his core dynamo of Phantasm, Void Engine, Shield Guards, Seraphel, towards a 50, contested that, applied or used his feet on top of 2 to make my life difficult. And the Spectre moved up and killed Iris, and then Rhythm of Ward to contest my flag terrain that I needed to be able to clear. So on my bottom of 2, I activated the modules I had over there. I aimed the first heavy machine gun. I go to Rat 9 when I aim against the Spectre. That is def 15 because of the spell it had. So I needed a 6 to hit. And I don't recall whether I hit on the first machine gun or the second. It was probably the first. But I hit it, so I flare it. And then I move up. Or I give Puppet Master the Black 13th. I move up the Black 13th. I play the Blessed card onto Glover. Again, because I just want to make sure that I kill the Spectre this turn and be done with it, right? And it sounds like I'm expending a lot of resources, and I was, but my one priority this turn was kill the Spectre. Because I'm not going in on the Phantasm this turn.
Right.
With all of the stuff that it has, and his feed is up. I'm just not bothering with that. All I have to do is kill the Spectre, and I'm fine. Like, we're on track. But if I spend this turn not killing the Spectre, stuff's going to start spiraling out of control really quickly. So that's why I gave Puppet Master to the Black 13th. I played Blessed on Glover after flaring the Spectre. And so now at this point, Glover is a rat of 7 against a def 13 Spectre with a reroll. So he has essentially 3 chances to knock it down, because I get 2 shots and I can reroll 1 miss attack roll. So I hit it, I knock it down, and then I just like dunk on the Spectre at that point. Once it no longer has stealth and it's knocked down, the Spectre's dead. It's just a matter of like how many more attacks you have to put into it. It turns out it wasn't that many. I think like after they activated, Deuce walked up and shot it once and it was gone or something like that. But that was like the first major fight. I don't think he was wrong to send the Spectre there. And I feel like I was correct to put the resources I put into it. And we got to continue playing the game. So
right, as opposed to just having scenario toilet bowl right away.
Right, exactly. And I think it's good to send up the Spectre and force your opponent to deal with it. And if I wasn't expecting that and prepared to receive that Spectre and put it down, then I would have struggled, right? Like if I hadn't properly allocated and positioned resources over near that scenario terrain, which I think was an obstruction. So like if my positioning wasn't good and my angles are bad, like if I didn't have stuff on the board edge side of that obstruction, he could have also had cover. And like, then how am I dealing with this Spectre with cover and stealth and Gravewind, right? So I had to be ready for it in order to deal with it efficiently. But if your opponent's not, then they're gonna have a real bad time. So we did that. He went for some Force Hammer and Force Fist plays to try to like push Warbore back on his top of 3 so that he could buy more space. This Phantasm, and they didn't really work out. Like, can you not hear me?
Oh no, I was
your
just
camera?
testing to make sure the camera was working. I've
Hello,
been
we're doing
furiously
this now?
restarting this thing. Yeah. No, it's been a struggle to get this going. No, please continue.
So I think he like missed his Force Fist. No, he didn't miss his Force Fist. What happened? I forget exactly what happened, but he ended up moving Warbore back like 2 or 3 inches, not a lot. And he positioned his Phantasm relatively aggressively, closer to the 50 mil again. He shot at some rowdies in clouds and missed. And then Seraphel did a Force Hammer at Warbore, and that's what got him like he rolled a 1 for the Force Hammer distance. And the one big mistake that I think he made this game was not running Seraphel the F away after casting.
Sure, because he's gotten everything he's needed, and his main goal should just be like get out of dodge.
Yeah, I mean he didn't get everything he needed. He really wanted to push Warbore further back, but at this point I have to deal with a Phantasm in my face with a Void Engine and like 5 or 6 shield guards in range, which is a thing that I can do, but it's a huge expenditure of resources. He still has 2 Eidolons and his caster and an arc node at that point. So he's going to get to clap back, and we're going to continue playing this game, right? But he left Seraphel where she was, which it turned out was a very dangerous place to be. So I go into my turn. I'm not even thinking about assassinating Seraphel. I'm thinking about dealing with dealing first with the Void Engine and then putting as much damage into the Phantasm as I can.
You're not thinking about it, but it shows up.
It does show up. So I start off by sending up one of my heavy machine gun crews, rolling up my gunshots, dropping an ammo crate, and I start shooting the Void Engine with POW 16s when they hit. And he's doing some he doesn't initially start shield guarding. Eventually he takes a shield guard, I think, because I'm doing a lot of damage to it. I'm gonna go activate my second heavy machine gun when I realize I can charge the Void Engine with the rowdies. I'd already used my heavy airdrop to contest the 50 mil last turn as a throwaway. But at this point, I'm like, I charge the rowdies in there. The Void Engine is flared. They're going to do a lot of damage. And it turns out when I can charge them in, I can also place one of them into melee with one of the Soulless Guardians. And if I can kill the Void Engine and start killing spraying through Shield Guardians, that's fantastic for me. So I do that. I send in the rowdies. I save my rowdy that was in melee. It was probably Dalton that I put. No, it was Frank's that I put there with one of the Soulless Guardians as well for my last activation, so that I can potentially get a killing spree off of that. Or if I don't get the killing spree, I can just make the attack into the Soulless Guardian. So I kill the Void Engine, I want to say with Frank's, and then start killing spraying into these Soulless Guardians. I need 5s to hit, and if I hit, I kill because of anatomical. I think I kill the first one, and then I think I miss my attack on the second one. But then I have 2 sprays. So I spray. Now the Void Engine's gone. I'm POW 12. They're only RM 17. So I'm off 5s with rerollable damage. And I think I killed 2 more of them. So he's got only 2 shield guards next to Seraphel now and no Void Engine. And so this is the point at which I'm looking at Seraphel and saying, are you dead? Let me go look at some angles and measure some stuff. So there's like a cloud. If you want to picture, like there's Seraphel up here, there's a cloud that's sort of at a diagonal, blocking off some line of sight to her. And then Kane is sort of biased to the right. And I've got Deuce over here. And then I've got Black 13th way up here that can easily get line of sight to her. And so I do some proxying and some measuring. Yeah, I don't need Mage Sight to be able to draw line of sight with Kane. I can walk far enough to get LOS around the cloud. Deuce can walk far enough. right, Deuce can walk far enough to get range and LOS to her. And I also have probably both of my Ranger heavy or Ranger light machine gunner models can get line of sight to her. And so I just really need to get rid of 2 shield guards that are left. So I move in the Black 13th and kill those 2 shield guards. I think at this point I have Glover and or Ryan and Watts left or something. They can get in range of there. Or maybe I had all 3. I don't remember, but they kill them. And then I walk up with Kane. I Lucky Penny. I shoot and boost a Witch Market Seraphel. She doesn't have any defense buffs on her at this point because she previously had both of them on Warjacks. She had Rhythm of War on herself. And going into this turn, she had upkept Rhythm of War and upkept Arcane Propulsion on the Phantasm. And then she spent her focus casting a Force Hammer. So she didn't.
That's ultra death.
Right. That's why she had to run away, but didn't. Right. That was the one mistake that he made. So ultimately, Kane put Calamity on her. And then I feed it as well and put the rest of my focus into her as gunshots at this point because she's now from a 16 down to a 14. So I need 5s to hit. So I'm not boosting attack. She's Calamity, so she's down to arm 15, I believe, because she starts at 17, right? And it turns out I did not need my heavy machine gun to go and flare her afterwards and do some damage. Because I'm sorry, I left that part out. I also had heavy machine gun that could get there. And I did not need Deuce to finish her off with decrep shots because Kane just rolled well and finished her by himself.
Naturally.
But, yeah, and I was talking with Rob about this after the game because he was sort of down on himself for leaving her there. He was like, oh, I don't know why I didn't see that. I should have run her. And I said, like, in a joking tone, but also said, like, this is not a joke. Like, most of the time a Seraphel player is going to put Seraphel somewhere and have a maybe subconscious conversation where they say, clearly I'm not in danger. What is my opponent going to do? Shoot me? And then laugh like their opponent's an idiot, right? Because it's Seraphel. She's pretty hard to shoot, especially when you've got the Void Engine and those Guardians, and she's got not force barrier, but whatever, like the extra
Blade
defense
shield,
against range. Yeah, blade shield and girded and steady. You're like, what are they going to do? Shoot my caster? But Kane is one of the few lists where the answer is like, yeah, I'm gonna shoot your caster after I kill all of your anti-range tech, right?
It also turns out all the anti-range tech only makes you 2/3 of a Gravedigger Kane to shoot at, which means like versus people who are trying to like assassinate the metagame, you're actually an easy target relatively because you're not defense 22 plus blast resistance.
Yeah,
it's like, oh, it's just defense 16, arm 17 up to 19. That's dealable.
Yeah. So I was talking with afterwards, and I was like, it was basically like, it's a real easy mistake to make playing Seraphel, particularly if you haven't had this happen to you yet on the table. But now that you have, like, easy fix, you just run away that turn. And then we have to continue playing out the rest of the game where I still get to kill the Void Engine, and then I get to put Kane and all this work into the Phantasm. So now I get to like try to kill a few shield guards, either walk up and hard cast a Calamity, or depending on what's still left over there, like shoot it with feet and Calamity, and then put the rest of my army to that Phantasm, see how much damage I can do, and try to keep Kane safe. And we'll have at least 2 or 3 more turns of the game if we play it like that and see how it shakes out. But fortunately for me, I didn't have to deal with that because Seraphel was where she was.
Fair enough. Yeah. Message, I guess, to all the Seraphel players out there: eat shot every once in a while just so you learn what your tolerances are.
Yeah, just so you don't start feeling like you're invincible to guns. Because when the second you think you're invincible, that's when you start putting yourself in positions where you can die. Like I encountered that a lot with Horus players last year when I was playing Jakes with Plugger into them. Where most of the time on his feet turn, Horus is just like, what are you going to do? Kill me? And most of the time the answer from your opponent is like, no, right? But it turns out when you can deliver a full synergy Silence of Death Plugger to a Horus player, they are very mortal. And I had several Horus players find that out the hard way. And having that reality check is good for these casters that start to feel like they're invincible, like Seraphel against guns or a Huxley. against everything, etc. Right? Like it's good to every now and then encounter these apocalypse level threats that can still kill you and make you remember that you still have to play the game, that you do in fact have a limited number of health boxes, and you have to respect the possibility that you could die and like actually analyze whether it could happen, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Defeat the hubris.
I'm gonna run away for 2 seconds while you talk about your next game. I'm still listening. I'll be right
Okay.
back.
Well, I have to stay on camera, even though my camera is giving out once again the thing I hope to combat. So my round 3 was on Pressure Point against mine and Brandon's longtime friend Rusty. He has been running Old Umbry lately, and the matchup came down Firequill versus Reznikova. So as far as the impact of Pressure Point on our game, I wound up going first, and there were a lot of like set decisions on where these flags had to go. So on my side of the board, it was 2 obstructions that were relatively near the initial flag placement. If it was his side of the board, it was going to be 2 obstructions relatively near the initial flag placement. If he was going second on his side of the board, 1 was going to an obstruction very near the initial flag placement, and the other was going to, he eventually chose a central forest. What was unique about this board is there was a long, like, eye-shaped burning earth hill near the middle of the board. Reznikova has Tree Walker, but Firequill gives True Sight. So I ignore this cloud. He doesn't. It turns out I use this cloud like a staging area to essentially pitch up my army forward and hide it from his. Keeping, taking care that I'm defending my own distant flags, and essentially preparing for an assault into the core of his army. This will come as a surprise to almost no one in the audience, but Old Umbry doesn't like being shot at, and they don't like being shot at, particularly from a cloud bunker that they don't ignore and don't get to set up against meaningfully. So Rusty pitches forward a number of his models looking to really leverage this forest. Unfortunately, and I catch a lot of stink from people for running a bosun unit in Firequill, because a lot of people think like, oh, you're running the shooting caster with the shoot harder effects. Why don't you run more things that shoot? And it's like, well, it turns out you're still only shooting relatively modestly next to somebody like Kane or Kishtar. So doubling down on shooting from a modest position isn't a great idea. And actually what you want to do is diversify the list, because the POW 12 pop guns are almost as good as POW 14 pop guns. And what you want is the ability to leverage pressure up the board entirely independent of your feet. In this case, and in basically every game I played with Firequill so far, the bosun unit was super impactful in being able to provide that. So I shove them into his central flag and say, you're going to be stuck on these marauders. Deal with it. He gets stuck on those marauders. He gets stuck on Lockabash over on the flank that he's offending against. But essentially, like, the threat of the king and Firequill and 4 pygmy cannons means the core of his army can't get involved. Rusty has a very complex state to play out of, and winds up I think it's dropping a forest to protect Reznikova versus making offensive gains to try and stay in scenario and not get obliterated by King. He opts to not defend Reznikova, and then Firequill untaps, peers through that cloud hill, and him and the King go and kill Reznikova.
Womp womp.
But this is all indicative of the decision dilemma that Old Umbry are put into by guns. Part of the reason Rusty played Reznikova on this scenario over Morozov is theoretically the Forest Tech is better to defend against guns than Fog of War, Prowl, and Ursine Shifted. I think in practice that's probably the case. I think a lot of people are right now overestimating Morozov's ability to survive shooting. And if Morozov is your top out for shooting defense, like Old Umbre's in a rough position. What do you think?
I think it's going to take a lot of skill from the Umbre player, and it's going to depend on the table and the scenario and the terrain and the player across the table from you to see whether you can win the game. But I think that competent range lists that have a competent melee element are going to be a struggle for Old Umbre players.
Yeah, I think that's right. Overall, like, man, it's a hard point in the meta to be Old Umbre. Do you see an easy out for the faction, or is it just like what they have to live with?
I mean, I think the faction's incredibly strong right now, and into melee based armies, I'm not like, I don't know what other armies are bringing to have a good game into Old Umbre, but it seems really difficult if you don't have one of these alpha level range threats that you can play into them. And even if you do, you still have to outplay your opponent to win, because they just have such an abundance of incredibly statted models and tools that you have to work through. So it's one of those things where I think, especially at lower tiers of player skill investment, I think Old Umbre is still going to just steamroll through a lot of matchups. But I think at the top end of the game, it's going to end up being more complex, and it's really difficult to predict right now because everything is still sort of resolving itself. And I've only played that matchup a few times, and most people have probably only played it a few times. So opinions and evaluations can change. But I think ultimately Old Umbre's weakness is probably going to be into the major gun lines that are out there. I know that a lot of Old Umbre players who are planning out their tournament year and trying to figure out their pair are looking for answers in the gun lines. And most of them, I think, are having a hard time finding an answer that they're satisfied with. So that's going to continue to be the challenge for them.
Is the answer for Old Umbre in the current metagame just the team format?
Possibly.
I mean, it could be that this is a faction that overperforms in teams versus underperforming in solos.
Yeah, maybe. We're going to have to see. We haven't had any major team events yet outside of Captain Con, which was day one Wild West. So
yeah,
we'll see as the meta settles a little bit more when we get into ATC, if we can find any interesting conclusions we can draw from that. But right now, I don't know.
Well, one thing I learned from Stumptown, it'll be interesting to see the Clash of Worlds at Dragon's Fury. Is what I was told going into Stumptown Showdown in Portland is like, this is the island of the summer children where gun lines don't exist and everyone plays Old Umbre. So it'll be interesting to see what happens when a when a bunch of foreign players hit the Pacific Northwest and show them the way of the gun.
Instead of machine gun nests and bunkers on the cliffs, they've just got bears up there with axes. And they're waiting for the charge that never comes. We just start shooting them instead.
Yeah. Speaking of being shot instead, let's talk about the finals, which is Sunday morning, me and you.
Before we get to that, after day one, as is tradition, we went out for dinner. Several of us. It was me, you, Rusty, Joe.
Are we gonna pivot into the planning tournament participation? Let's do this because this is important.
We can do that. I just wanted to mention how incredible that ramen place was and ask you if you remembered the name.
Oh, I don't, but I can find it again pretty easy.
It was fantastic. It was some of the best ramen I've had in quite some time. And when we got the bill, I remember saying something to you to the effect of, there must be a mistake. There's no way that the ramen I got with extra noodle and extra chashu and a beer was only $30. Like, ramen of this caliber, this meal must have been more expensive, but like tax, tip, everything told, I was like, this is incredibly cheap for what I just got, which was an incredible meal. So the food was great. We had excellent company at the end of the day, and that was a really fun time. And I think when you're going to a convention, whether you're going there with friends or you're making new friends, take the time to go out and have meals with people. If you don't have time for lunch, do dinner. If you have time for breakfast, wake up and do breakfast club and just sit down and have breakfast with people. The ability to bond and hang out and chat and talk shop or shoot the shit or whatever it is half of the reason that we do this being traveling to play Warmachine, and it's so worthwhile. And that was a great dinner that we had. I hadn't seen Rusty in a while. I hadn't seen Joe in a while. So it was really good to hang out with those guys and with you, obviously, and have a nice chat.
You don't need to lie to me. No, you're absolutely right. You know, you meet and form friendships over the table, and then over the dinner table or over the breakfast table is where those friendships like really get the opportunity to deepen. Um, you'll get to explore aspects of the game, of matchups, and even just like a meeting of the minds from other players that you admire. Like, if you're trying to break into the circuit, or if you're considering, is competitive Warmachine for me, ask yourself the question, do I like good food? The answer should be yes, because there's a ton to learn about yourself and about the game there and about other people. I always give the advice when planning a trip and planning travel, because a lot of people, like, when they're new to it, try and schedule like, oh, I'm going to fly out like 6 p.m. on Sunday. And it's like, guess what? You qualified for Masters. Enjoy spending all morning on the phone trying to reschedule your flight.
Or being totally stressed the final round, like, oh boy,
right.
am I going to make it to the airport in time?
Right, yeah, you got your roller bag in one hand and your dice in the other. Like, that's the nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
Always leave yourself like a room for a comfortable sit down dinner. Because if you get the opportunity to take it, it's gonna be wonderful to connect with the people that you met over the event, or old friends, and really dig into the game. If not, hey, guess what? You got to run to the airport, but you left yourself an extra 2.5 hours. So, the event ran behind schedule. You are covered. And in the case of Rocky Mountain Rumble, I didn't dig too deep into how the event was being scheduled, but you, me, and Ryan McCoy essentially got to spend like 10, 12 hours together. That was a phenomenal day.
All day. And some of the evening together. We just sat and chatted, and somehow didn't get tired of each other until we had to go our separate ways.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Didn't get tired of each other until the airline started calling boarding groups. Yeah. Yeah. So that's some of the developing player segment, which I hope we'll have time to get through. Take us through, because I'm curious to hear your experience of how did this last round go? We were on two fronts. We were on, as you said, the comfy board, but it was also an odd board for terrain.
Yeah, so it had some large obstructions, and one of them had this big ring, outer ring of extra obstruction around it, which looked really cool. But as you know, terrain that looks really cool isn't always very cool to play with. So we made an executive decision when we sat down at that table and said, should we just remove this ring? And we were both like, yes, obviously. Because otherwise it's really difficult to figure out where you could position models around it. So we did that. And the rest of the board I didn't feel was particularly strange. It had a decent sized obstruction in the middle of the table. and then another one on the right side, and then a big one on the left side, and then other little pieces of terrain that didn't matter nearly as much. And I guess there was another, it was a lot of obstructions, basically.
It was a lot of obstructions and then some pretty clear lines of sight in general.
Yes. In between the obstructions, there was some pretty clear shooting lanes. And because we were playing Kane versus Firequill, I didn't feel like either one inured to either of our benefit over the other, but it was clear that we were going to be shooting at each other all game. And no hiding, essentially.
Yeah, you're just out in the open or you're out of line of sight, and them's the breaks.
Yeah. And you were playing this Firequill list that has Boarding Party and Pig Shockers. And then you've got the Abyssal King, which is obviously a big threat. You've got the Pig Cannon Crew, which I think are a really good model to include as well. So you've got a lot of pieces I have to respect.
They're the we have heavy machine guns at home model.
They're not. They're super different, right? Like
I know
their output is not the same, but they're a control piece as well in terms of playing on scenario and like maybe losing an important support piece or enabling other models to kill, because they're Rat 6, right? Like they're one of the higher Rat models in your army.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of stuff I have to respect. And I think did I go first in this game? I forget. I think I did.
You did.
I'm pretty sure I did.
Because you walked forward the Black 13th with Blur and some heavy machine guns. And I opted to strut the King and see if I rolled like, what was it, 15s or 14s or whatever? 14s. Right. Yeah, like let's see if I can crit the pitch Jetsam and just win this flank outright.
Yeah. So in terms of deployment and approaching this matchup, essentially what I did was when you deployed, half of my army is AD, right? So like you deployed your King, I deployed my Pig centrally. You deployed your King biased towards my left side of the table, I think. Mm-hmm. And one of the impacts of having these obstructions was that you essentially have to pick a lane with your Gargantuan early on and commit to it, so that you can't sort of play the middle of the table. I'm going to go where I'm needed. You just got to pick a lane.
Yeah, there were essentially two lanes of approach I had to pick from, and like the rest of the board was closed off. One was diagonal from my perspective, west to east, and the other was like diagonal from east to west, and those were the only lines my King could play.
So when I saw what direction your King was going to go, he was going to go towards the 40 mil side of the table. Mm-hmm. I allocated enough models over there that I thought I could essentially fight a delaying action, but my plan was to shift hard right towards the 50s. Because what I want to do in that matchup with that table is win a side on two fronts specifically, is win a side as fast as possible. And the side with the King is never going to be the fastest side for me to win. So I wanted to just be able to delay that as long as possible and then crush the other flank. That was my hope. So I put the Black 13th over there. I think I put 3 of my heavy machine guns. You need a Rangers.
At least 3. It might have been 4, but yeah.
It might have been all of them, yeah.
Yeah, and then you had gun mages and storm veins deployed ostensibly centrally to support Kane and Deuce, but actually positioned to, okay, we have one turn of real supporting to do. And then after that, what we're actually doing is, that thing that support units do, like I move this guy here. And then there's one guy exactly 2 inches to the left and exactly 2 inches to the right. And it's like, we can pivot theaters of engagement as fast as possible and drip feed into a scenario situation that we're losing and buy us the rest of the game on contests on my turn.
Right. I was
that's what the deployment position was. Even if my dice went bananas, which they did not. You had
they kind of did, just not critical hit bananas that turn.
They did to start ish, but they didn't go bananas enough that like you just
ran out of bananas.
Yeah, exactly.
All the bananas were gone. They turned into potatoes.
Yeah. Oh, hey. I was just looking to check something from this tournament, and I went to my dashboard and like, oh, I'm the top Brine Bloods player again. I guess
Congrats.
Longshanks is weird.
It sure is. Yeah, so like you said, I had my Storm Veins and my Gun Mages positioned every turn to be in range to run to contest the 50 on the left in case I lost that sooner than I hoped. I'd be able to get at least 2 more turns of contesting, ideally, so that I can continue to win the right side to the point where you wouldn't be able to contest. That was my goal, right? And from my perspective and recollection, on bottom of 1, you walked up the king, did some shooting, killed, I think, a heavy machine gun and one of the Black 13th by rolling big numbers. And I was sad.
Just killed Watts.
Just killed Watts. You didn't kill a
I
machine gun?
might have got a machine gun. I'm pretty sure I just got Watts, but I might have got a machine gun.
I feel like you got both, but either way, it doesn't matter. Like I took some losses, which happens when your defense is defense. Sometimes your opponent will hit and models will die, and you're sad. There's nothing you can do about it. But I had like duck and cover and blur on them, so they were real difficult to kill. And I think it was that turn that you ran your boasting unit at me, or was that the turn afterwards?
No, yeah, it was it was that turn where I burned duck and cover and
gave them high noon and ran them at me. And it was a situation. I was like, oh, I didn't think they were coming at me this turn, but here they are. They weren't anywhere near close enough to engage me, but they were close enough to threaten to charge anything on that 50 mil. So I couldn't ignore them, but I also was not well poised to kill them because it would have required a commit from Kane, and I didn't want to have to deal with that. So I basically tried to set up the best delaying bunker that I could with Rangers and machine guns that turn, and I backed up my Black 13th to be a second wave. Assuming you were going to clear out my bunker, I had my Black 13th in position to at least run or walk up, maybe do some damage, and at least be able to contest the 50 again. But it turns out the bunker I built was good enough.
Right. It turns out my assault did nothing.
It didn't quite do nothing, but I ran up a heavy machine gun or 2 and sort of put them in the way. They don't have melee weapons, so they can't engage, but I put them physically in the way of charge lanes that you'd have to kill them before the Marauder crew could charge anything.
I'm pretty sure your heavy machine guns killed more Marauders than on your turn. Killed more Marauders on my charge. Yeah, then my Marauders killed Gravedigger models.
I think that is true. And so I sort of bunkered up the Rangers and the 3rd heavy machine gun around the 50 and hugging that obstruction there. And I dropped in a mantlet just to sort of block some additional landing spots to make it as difficult as possible. And it turns out your dice were very cold with Firequill and the King shooting. Actually, I don't remember if Firequill shot at them. I think he did, but Firequill and King shooting and maybe the Reef Troll were very cold. And it's like maybe you killed one of the heavy machine guns.
Yeah. Yeah, this was the awkward situation where Firequill had to be like, I'm gonna blow all my initials taking like spray and black penny attacks into these dickheads, and did embarrassingly little. Yeah,
and I think the King aimed that turn, right? So that he was rat 6.
Did.
So he's rat 6. He still needs 11s to hit a heavy machine gun. And I think he missed every attack.
Yep.
And I don't recall whether he got a kill with blast damage or not. I feel like he probably did finally at the end, boosting 2 dice blast damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so you cleared a path for your Marauders, finally. And it's just 1 that I had blocking. So I think I still had 2 back there. And you charged in the Marauders. And I think I knocked down 1 or 2 of them with sentry fire shots. And then you proceeded to miss almost every attack with your Marauder crew when they charged him.
Yep.
And so it was more potato dice. So I lost very few models that turn when I was expecting to lose all of them. So I was like, oh, that's nice. And on the right side of the table, you moved up the Lockabash Bros in their Come At Me Bro formation near the
50s, yeah.
Sorry, yeah, my mistake. It was 50s on my right, 40s on my left. So near the 50s and near your 50. And you took some YOLO shots at some rowdies over there behind a wall, and none of them went through or connected. And Iris is over there too. And so at the start of my top of 2, I'm like, all right, this is cool. I'm gonna put Calamity. Keep in mind, Kane is in the center, and I actually did not deploy Warbore essentially this match. I'm remembering incorrectly. He was far
Right.
on the right because there was that other obstruction splitting things. And so my plan was for him to go up there and babysit that 150 behind a wall all game. So Kane's central. I'm like, Kane's going to shift this way. He's in range to get range 12 to put a Witchmark Calamity on the Lockbash Bros and to shoot a Pig Dirge. And if I kill that, I get to gate crash over here behind a wall and feel comfortable. My comfort was an illusion, but we'll get to that in a second. So I walk up Kane with the reroll, and I shoot the Dirge first because securing my safety is paramount. So if I don't get the Dirge kill, I don't want to be in a situation where I shot the Lockbash Bros and cast Calamity first like an idiot, and then all of a sudden I miss my first shot with a reroll on the Dirge, and then buy a shot and miss that one. And I'm like, I can't kill this Dirge now. I'm sitting here and I die. So I do the smart thing and I make sure I kill the Dirge first, which I do. And then I put Calamity on the Lockbash Bros, and then I gate crash. I think I gave myself heightened reflex, and I was camping 1 behind a wall.
That is correct, yeah.
And so then at that point, Iris charged one of the Lockbash Bros. She's a 7, so she needs a 6 to hit at this point because set defense and Calamity cancel out.
After you've given him the clams.
So she hit and made one of the Lockbash Bros stationary, shot a gunshot at a pig crew with Phantom Seeker, rolled a little poorly and either missed or hit, and at dice off 1 didn't kill it.
You did like 3 or 4 damage, or what? You did 3 because he was also corroded from sticking his toe in acid, and I knew he was fine.
Right. So it was one of those, like, I get extra value out of this plays. I could put a Death Bolt into the Lockbash Bro just to reduce his defense more, but I'm like, I have enough throughput to kill this unit. If I can start picking off your cannon crews with her as well, that's great. So she did that, which did a bunch of damage too with her POW 12 charge at dice off 8 because it's a weapon master.
She did, yes.
Repoed out of the way. Then the Rowdies charged, dropped in a Raider engaging 2 of the Bash Bros, and just went ham and ended up finishing off the Bash Bros and then getting, I think, another spray or 2 into a different cannon crew, which also I think did not kill it.
Yeah, I think
if I recall correctly.
Right, yeah.
But they accomplished their primary mission, which was get rid of the Bash Bros top of 2, like, as early as possible. Like, they're gone now. And my recollection is when that happened, you were probably feeling a lot of pressure at that point on the flank, because I think you were probably hoping for and relying that unit would buy you a turn or 2 of contesting on that side of the table.
I was expecting it to buy me more time than it did, and I think my cardinal mistake was putting them in the danger zone to take incidental shots at the Rowdies. If I was playing them smarter, I would have just withheld and said, I'm going to wait for scoring to start in earnest and make Brandon spend a whole turn on these guys.
Right. Yeah, they didn't need to be in charge range of the Rowdies.
Yeah, absolutely.
If they're not, then I don't shoot at them that turn. I just skirmish with other things and then move on, right? But as it was, I put in the resources on that side of the table, which was the only major action I had that turn, was killing a Dirge and trying to make sure I killed the Lockbash Bros. My mistake was that after I did all this, I ran up Warbore behind the wall, getting in position to advance towards your 50 the following turn, like an idiot. And so Kane's sitting here with heightened reflexes and cover and force barrier and 1 focus. Like, what are you going to do? Shoot me? And
So I'm not gonna lie. I went into this game like, okay, Shadow Tongue is probably better here generally, but this board is bad for me and bad for Shadow Tongue. I bet you Brandon is not super fluent with all the models that changed in Brine Bloods. The one shot I have is we just electroleaped him to death. Let's see if he remembers that pig shockers have this. And like, you're fighting my king, you're fighting my Lockabash brothers, and in the center is the spirit shamans being like, we're creating water around these shockers that the booty boss gave Prowl to, and we're hoping Brandon doesn't decide it's worth second sight or a deuce activation to deal with this. I bet you Brandon's going to screw up at some point and put his caster next to Warboar.
So I'm a smart player. So when I play against models that I don't already have the rules internalized for, I look at the card and I read the rules, particularly in a new sandbox. I'm like, lots of stuff has changed. I know for a fact this unit has changed. And Cosmo's not an idiot. If he's playing them, there's a good reason. They're probably good models or do something niche that I need to watch out for. So I read the card and I was like, oh, cool. Disruption, Electroleap, better stats. All the pigs lost tough. Great. And I set that aside. Did not internalize Disruption, Electroleap on their guns. That just didn't internalize. So I wasn't even thinking about it when I positioned Warboar that turn, because there were two easy things I could have done. One, not put Warboar there within 3 of my caster. Or two, just run up
Carver to touch him.
Yeah, base to base, or at least closer than Kane is. Because at that point, the only things you had in range that could meaningfully attack those models, besides the shockers here, were some cannon crews, your 2 pig cannon crews, and like the Vrager could have taken a shot, but he's not dragging anything because there's a wall there. Right. So I'm not worried about Carver dying in that position. And I can do that and have him be the lightning rod so that Kane doesn't suffer the POW 10s, so that Carver suffers the dice off 12s that literally can't hurt him. But I didn't do that because, again, I didn't internalize the Electroleap, and you sure did get your shot. And boy, was it a pucker situation.
Right. Yeah, 50-50.
Yep. I mathed it afterwards, and it was quite literally a coin flip. And I quite literally called tails and got tails, and therefore did not lose the game immediately.
I kept thinking about it because I had because I had 2 more cannon crews and a frog that could have taken like Hail Mary need boxcars at Kane, and I'm like, am I an idiot for not firing those? Giving myself an extra on aggregate 6%, like, nah, that would have been stupid.
Yeah, I don't
if it's a play to win the game, but
yeah, I think you left me on like 3 boxes, something like that. Not very high.
You were on 2
boxes.
Yeah.
So a scary amount of low boxes, but it turns out this is Gravediggers. In pretty much any other matchup, your opponent who is now sitting on 3 boxes would be like, I have to run and hide. I can't contribute for at least another turn of the game, probably for the rest of the game, until all of his models are dead.
Instead, you drop a medical crate and
heal to full.
Yep.
Because you can do that even if it's not a Gravedigger caster, it doesn't have tough. If it's a friendly living model, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
I always have to check the rules. I know that you can do it on any friendly faction model. I don't recall if it's just living for that. The other elements of the medical crate, in terms of the stay death part, that one is friendly model with tough. So it doesn't even have to be alive. If we had access to a model with tough that was a construct or undead, you could use a med crate to stay death on that. I'm going to double check myself before I give people wrong information. Battlefield medicine. Friendly model with tough is disabled within 2 inches of it. So if we had like, I don't know, in a doubles game, a duos game, you're playing with an exalted player and they've got like Hakar with tough on him, he could use med crates to stay alive, which is silly. But you can use it on like Boomhowler and Carver and stuff. But relevant here, you can remove damage from a friendly faction living model, which Kane is. So I did that. And it's D3 plus 2 for each box that you damage the medical crate. So you can heal for a minimum of 15 health. And Kane only has 15 health. So no matter what, you're getting him back to full. And so that allowed me to keep Kane in the fight. And
Yeah, you
we
got
weren't making
him
that
on
mistake
three. You
again.
got him on 3 crate tabs. No, yeah. Yeah, I took my sucker punch attempt at Brandon, like maybe he won't have internalized these rules deeply enough. I've probably got 1 event win on him with this and then never again. We'll take it right now. See if it works.
Yeah, but you failed the coin flip, and then my next turn, I had 2 priorities. 1, drop a med crate and heal Kane to full, and 2, murder every single shocker on the table. That was
Yeah,
the priority
it
number
turns
1.
out Deuce did it with 2 blast shots. He's
He
like,
got a little
screw
lucky.
you, screw you. He got
Yeah.
lucky. He needs 7s to hit and boosted 6s to kill.
Yeah, but like he's lucky that he hit both of those 7s and that the 6s happened, right? Because it's 2 different attack rolls and then 5 different damage rolls. And if one of them goes wrong, then I have to allocate other resources. So
Let's be honest. The luckiest Deuce got was that the game was still going.
yes, the luckiest Deuce got was that he was not inert at that point in time.
Yes. Oh man.
Yeah, the rest of the game from that point was essentially just
It was a massive toilet bowl.
yeah. You shot your shot.
Because I'd underperformed on your left hand flank, and you had just obliterated your right hand flank. And the center I hollowed out essentially. So you're left scoring the bonus jackpot on your right, and I'm left desperately trying to keep up. So you give me another turn of flailing around, and that's the game.
Yeah. And what was I going to say? Yeah, I think your one big mistake that game was moving the Bash Bros into charging to the Rowdies that turn. And then your second biggest mistake was failing to win a coin flip. Should have rolled better. I don't know what to tell you.
There was some other micro I could have done. For instance, carefully managing my contesting / scoring. Because at one point I did let the central 50 lapse in the interest of marginally protecting Firequill, which why am I going to protect my caster when you're going to win anyways? Like you would much rather go for inevitability than even try. So
I think honestly, going into bottom of 2, what you probably should have done after I collapse the Bash Bros is run. Just spend a turn running your king towards the 50s. And then you just have the Reef Troll over there to like contest and like just delay the fight on the 40s. But the king and Firequill, I think, needed to just shift hard to that side of the table and turn it into a shootout and just see who comes out on top.
It's you that comes out on top.
I mean, maybe
that's why I didn't do it.
Maybe, but I think even if you win the 40s on the left, you weren't ever going to win them at that point faster than I was winning the 50s.
Yeah, that's absolutely
I think,
true. Especially after fumbling, my opportunity to like get ahead, as it were.
Right. And so I think drastic action is what was called for at that point, and just saying, everybody drop what you're doing and head over here to fight and die, and maybe one of you will get lucky and score a killing blow on somebody that changes the course of the game.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right.
But as every game that we play,
if not objectively right, then at least a markedly appropriate observation.
Yeah, and so I mean, this is with the benefit of hindsight, right? Because we saw how the game played out. But I think when we're looking at that side of the table, the Bash Bros and the Vrogger are your 2 pieces that are really going to be trying hard to hold on to that side of the table. And once the Bash Bros go down, the Vrogger is not going to do it by himself, looking down the barrel of Kane, Warbor, and the Rowdies, and Iris, and even Carver himself, right? So either you are seeding the 50 mils before you've ever gotten to score a point on them, knowing that you still haven't won the 40s and that the fight is going behind schedule on the 40s as well, or you pick a side and just shift to what I was doing, which is play a delaying action on one of them. And the delaying action against a unit of Rangers, the Rowdies, and some machine guns feels a lot better than a delaying action against all of my cohort models, plus the Rowdies and
Right.
Iris.
I think that's fair. I mean, well, we're we're running a little overtime. I was hoping to get to Stumptown Showdown, but I think it's actually I tell you what I'm going to do for Stumptown Showdown. I think I might try and record something quick on an aside for this. But you know, I think you're right about that that avenue of play. 3 hours, three. Oh my god. Oh, I think you're right about that that avenue of play. What I've come to is, even though there are ways I can break it a little different with Firequill, I don't feel like it gets much more favorable. Like we're kind of negotiating about like 10% margins, you know, when I'm already down to like 25-30%, you know, and getting a matchup to like maybe 35 when it's lower than that is good. But I've decided to devote my attention to not being in that position again. Which I think is doable
choice.
for Brine Bloods.
Yeah.
You know, persistently, I think Kane is going to continue to be a boogeyman. And, you know, it was there like clear as day for me that Sunday morning, like, okay, Firequill Shadow Tongue in this configuration does not deal with Kane. And it probably doesn't deal with Lilith. And if I'm honest, my matchup into Kishtar is probably slightly worse than my handy win result gave me. So, Stumptown Showdown, the story involved some rethinking and some testing of theories, which we can get into later. Any final notes on Rocky Mountain Rumble or on this game?
The game was a great game. Every game I have with you is a great game. And apparently us playing our final game together at an event that we go to is a tradition that has been years in the making and years in the maintaining. So I was neither surprised nor disappointed.
Now, yes,
it is. It's like a handshake upon
as
greeting.
has you winning.
So you won the last one before this.
Cascadia was the blip on the radar.
The crown that you wear currently in your photo in this live stream was the last one where you beat me at the top table. So
okay, maybe I should just stop being such a Debbie Downer. But yeah,
recent memory, we're 1-1.
Yeah, Brandon v Cosma finals, a tradition I look to maintain for many a year.
Likewise. And the event itself, like I've said already, was a ton of fun. I was super happy to get to see old friends, spend more time with new friends. I had a great lunch with Will after our game because we had a lunch break and we finished a little early, and we had a great chat for quite some time. So that was great. I got to hang out with you and Ryan and spend more time in one room chatting with Ryan than I have probably ever before, and enjoyed not every second, but most of the seconds of it. And
I got to learn how to pronounce Ryan's last name.
I still don't know how to pronounce it, even though I've heard it said. Every time I hear McCoy, I'm like, that can't be real. He's not a
There's no way the Irish would abuse the English language like that.
That name sounds made up. But it was a great event. It encapsulated everything I love about traveling to play Warmachine, and that's getting to play quality games of Warmachine, getting to meet and interact with old friends and make new ones, and also see lists and play styles in a different meta, and be able to add that to my experience and enjoy the diversity that makes this game more fun when you have that diversity that adds flavor. So all of those things, plus an incredible ramen dinner on the Saturday night, definitely a success for me. And it was
we
super
didn't
happy
even talk about breakfast, because breakfast was also amazing.
Oh yeah, breakfast on Sunday was fantastic. I don't even remember what the place was called. It was like good something. I don't remember, but
Common Good. Common
Common
Good.
Good. There we go.
Common
Yeah, not
Good
only
in Aurora, Colorado. And just remember, within 10 minutes of Common Good, there's a ramen place whose name we can't remember that's rated 4.9 on Google. That's one of the best and cheapest you can have.
yes, the Common Good. Their food was great. I knew immediately when I was looking for breakfast places that this was going to be a Cosmo approved spot because they had non-standard creative breakfast fare while also having like the classics.
Do you,
But
I had no idea that the causality was so much catering to my taste, because recently Ella and I went to like a breakfast slash coffee place in the Phoenix area, and I'm looking around at the decor and looking around at the creative menu. I'm like, I think we found a Brandon place.
I also like these places, but when I'm looking for a brunch or breakfast place, if you are in the group, I'm specifically looking for a place that doesn't just do bacon and eggs.
Yeah.
Because while I will be
I
fine with that, and most people are, I know how much you appreciate a menu that does something different to the breakfast, and not everybody does.
I did have the salmon eggs Benedict, and oh my god, was that excellent.
Yeah, the food was good and the service was also good, not because it was good service, which it was, but everyone was just like super quirky and friendly. Even when
Mhm.
we weren't like interacting in, I want to say professional capacity, like when we were just waiting around for everybody to show up, they were joking around. The one guy in particular was making constant jokes, and none of them were good, but it was funny because of that and enjoyable.
It's like the kind of atmosphere you expect in like the diner from a Tom Waits song like 45 years ago, and you know everything's in grayscale. But it was in like the restaurant of an upscale hotel in Colorado in full Technicolor. Like,
With
huh?
very good food. So
Yeah,
yeah,
with
it was a
very
good
good
find.
food.
So I was pleased. I look forward to
Yeah,
the next one.
yeah. Likewise, can't wait to see those guys again. In lieu of, because I do have some topics I want to come to from Stumptown Showdown. I had some interesting thoughts that maybe I'll follow up with you again on. There's so much meaty stuff to dig into from how out there this year is turning out to be. Like every
Yeah.
event I go to, I'm coming back with like serious concepts that need prying open with people whose opinions I trust. Um, but real quick, I'll just give a shout out to Stumptown Showdown in Oregon, hosted at Gongai Games by Joby Bevan, Dennis Wilson, and Jacob Cooper. They were fantastic hosts. Gongai was a great location. 3-man team tournament. My friend Richard Palakis and my friend Ryan Saul formed a team because Richard missed his friends, and his friends carried him to victory. It was a team effort. Ryan and I went 4-0. Richard went 2-2. Fantastic event. They are looking
Team
to
effort. Love you, Richard.
no, yeah, we had 13 teams registered, 12 teams show up, so like 36 players for a 1-day 3-man team tournament. Dennis, Joby, and Jake are looking to make this a 2-day event next year. Hopefully kick it up to 5-man team tournament and add a qualifier. The event was catered.
Call it the I-5 tournament again. Bring it back to its heritage name, please.
I was telling them that. Yeah. Don't call it Toby, call it the I-5 team tournament. But yeah, keep an eye out, guys. Next February for Stumptown Showdown / the I-5 team tournament. It's going to be one to really remember. These are event organizers who really have their head on straight. It's going to be a fantastic one. Also, same venue, same fantastic crew of guys. If you're not already registered, give a look to Dragon's Fury in June. Portland is a hot spot for big event Warmachine. JC Cervantes recently upped the cap from 32 to 48 and increased the the team tournament cap as well. So give that a look and come and meet this fantastic meta.
And Alex, the finals for the I5 team event that you went to, the Stumptown, was your team, Richard Misses His Friends, against F. Mary Kill, Dorothy Blanche Rose. And I think it's important that we establish that you marry Dorothy, you kill Blanche, and you F Rose. Like, that's the only real answer here. Anybody else is wrong.
I was told afterwards, because I didn't get the reference, that this is the Golden Girls.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Wow. I'm disappointed in you. Sophia is my spirit animal. I can't believe you didn't immediately recognize the Golden Girls.
Oh, man. I'm both too old and not old enough.
You could name every philosopher in history, but you didn't recognize the Golden Girls.
Apparently not.
I'm disappointed.
All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. Brandon, thanks